How do you guys measure your performance? How do you know when you're improving? Time and distance, right? How many of you come back on Saturday morning and go, oh, I finished that run X amount of seconds faster than last week? Anybody doing that? One person says no, one person says yes, the rest of you are going what? I don't know, I don't keep track of it. Okay, that's good. So measuring your performance by time and distance is good for an event, but it's not necessarily the best way to measure your training performance, okay? One of the best ways to measure your training and performance is by your intensity, okay? So, brings us to my next section, which is heart rate monitors. So one of the best ways to monitor your intensity is with a heart rate monitor. Here is a transmitter which fits across your chest, and on my wrist here is a small, it looks like a oversized watch. It's actually a small computer. It will actually track my heart rate, and this particular one will store my heart rate for me, as well as measure the distance that I went using this shoe palm. Okay? Very sophisticated unit. Right? Great unit for determining your improvements. Because if you can go out and run at a faster pace at the same heart rate, guess what? You just got some improvement. So keep that in mind. What are some of the advantages of the heart rate monitors? Well, the biggest is that they can tell you when you're improving your performance. By measuring your intensity, instead of just relying on time and distance, you can actually gauge whether your performance is improving or not. So measuring the intensity. One of the other big advantages to heart rate monitors is their objective. So a lot of people go out and run based on how they feel. I feel good today. So if you feel good today, what do? You go out and you run hard, right? How do you feel the next day? Yeah. Okay, if I run too hard, I feel terrible the next day. All right? So how can I gauge my runs so that I don't run too hard? In other words, I don't stress my body too much, which allows it to rest overnight and recover so that I can go out and run the next day. Well, monitoring your intensity is the way to do that, and using a heart rate monitor is the best way. Okay, so what are some of the disadvantages? The biggest disadvantage is people tell me they're too expensive. They're way expensive. A good unit like this that we're looking at is about $300 to $400. Okay, so yes, that's a lot of investment, but you got to ask yourself, you know what? Am I in this for one marathon, or am I in it for fitness for life? Most of these units will last 8, 10, 12 years. So you can amortize that over to the yearly or a monthly basis and actually get your investment back. All right? The other big disadvantage is people say they're difficult. If you've opened up the manual for this particular one, it's pretty difficult to go through and figure out what's going on. Yeah, so it's very difficult, okay? I get questions all the time. People come into me saying, how do I do this? How do I do that? I had some lady this morning didn't know how to start it, okay? And she'd had it for a couple months. That's pretty tough, okay? So how does that help? Excuse me. So how I can help you with that is that I have 2 workshops. I have one workshop that's called Maximizing Performance with a Heart Rate Monitor. It's 8 hours, and it gets you started on how to use the basics of a heart rate monitor. Learn about the fuel systems, learn about your anaerobic threshold, your aerobic threshold, etc., etc. I also have a second workshop, which is a favorite for people, is actually how to push the buttons when. Some of these buttons, I have like 5 buttons on here. Some of them have 5 different functions. So how do I know when to press this button this time and that button that time, etc., etc.? So that's a second workshop I have, which is a hands-on polar workshop. In addition, one of the things I offer, how many people have used my Loner heart rate monitors? A couple of you, okay. So you see the 10 over here that's a stress 10, rest 10? I actually have 6 heart rate monitors that I loan out to people during their run or walk this morning. used one this morning. A couple other people used ones in the past. It's a great tool for you to go out, do your run, come back, we'll download the data, take a look at the data, and I'll try and help you understand it and figure out if you're overtraining. So that's how I can help you out. If you want to reserve one, I have a reserve list, or you can send me an email on it, all right? Other than that, I think that, the other thing I mentioned, JR, if you're wondering where your range is, what your aerobic range is, and where you should actually be running, JR Malpass, who's sitting over here on the ground, actually does VO2 testing. So if you want to chat with him, he'll do the testing and he'll be able to tell you precisely where you should be, what intensity you should be running at. With that combination of intensity, your time, and your distance, you'll be able to succeed with the program.